Every single one of us is led by feelings, whether we acknowledge or not. Feelings are the invisible forces shaping our decisions, our relationships, and the direction of our lives. They are powerful, but like any source of power, they can either build something extraordinary or cause devastating damage. Think of feelings as the steering wheel of your life. If you know how to guide them, they'll take you exactly where you want to go. If you let them control you, they can take you off the road completely. We all experience moments of frustration, jealousy, anger, or fear. Those feelings are real, but the danger comes when we let them drive our choices. A single decision made in anger can break years of trust. A moment of envy can create distance between you and someone you care about. But the same energy, if redirected, can fuel growth. Anger can push you to solve a problem rather than destroy a relationship. Fear can protect you from recklessness, but also challenge you to prepare and improve. What determines the quality of our lives is not whether we feel these emotions, because we all do, but whether we allow them to define us. Feelings were designed to signal something, not to dominate everything. They should inform us, not imprison us. Think of people who thrive in difficult circumstances. They don't avoid emotions, they reinterpret them. When things go wrong, instead of saying, I feel hopeless, they tell themselves, this feeling is showing me that I need to adapt, learn, or take another road. In other words, they let feelings guide them to solutions, not setbacks. Your feelings are your responsibility. You can't control what triggers them, but you can control how you interpret and respond to them. Every choice you make is either a conscious decision to rise above destructive emotions or a surrender to them. That's why awareness is key. The more self-aware you become, the more power you have over your outcomes. In life, it's not intelligence, luck, or resources alone that determine who succeeds and who struggles. It's often the ability to regulate emotions. The person who learns to stay calm in chaos makes better decisions than the one who reacts in panic. The person who turns envy into inspiration grows, while the one who nurtures envy into resentment stays stuck. So ask yourself, are my feelings making me or breaking me today? Because in that question lies the difference between progress and regret, between building something meaningful or tearing it down. At the end of the day, feelings are tools. They can either sharpen you into someone stronger, or they can dull your potential. The choice has always been yours. Flaky notes of the speech. Feelings are powerful forces that shape decisions and outcomes, either constructively or destructively. Emotions should act as signals to guide us, not as masters that control us. Transforming negative emotions into drivers of growth is the key to resilience. Self-awareness allows us to respond to feelings with intention rather than reaction. The quality of your life depends on whether you let feelings break you or use them to make you stronger. Feelings are powerful forces that shape decisions and outcomes, either constructively or destructively. From the moment we wake up in the morning, our emotional state begins to influence the way we see the world, how we interpret situations, and ultimately how we act. If you wake up feeling optimistic and energized, your day often unfolds in ways that reflect that energy. You see opportunities where others see obstacles, and you're more likely to take productive action. On the other hand, if you wake up feeling irritated or defeated, the smallest inconveniences feel magnified, and your responses tend to create more tension than progress. In both cases, the feeling itself becomes the lens through which you shape your reality. This is why feelings are so powerful. They are not passive experiences, they are active forces that direct the way our lives unfold. Every choice we make is, at its root, influenced by an emotional state. Think about some of the biggest decisions you have made in your life. Did you accept a job because you felt excited about the future it could bring? Or did you reject an opportunity because fear convinced you it was too risky? Did you nurture a relationship because it gave you a sense of joy and connection? Or did you let one go because feelings of resentment grew stronger than feelings of love? These decisions, big and small, are guided less by logic than we like to admit. It is our emotions that often tip the scale one way or the other. This is why people say, I had a gut feeling when describing an important decision. The gut feeling is nothing more than an emotional force signaling what feels right or wrong. But the challenge is that these forces can be constructive or destructive, depending on how we handle them. Constructive feelings such as gratitude, curiosity, and hope push us toward actions that build stronger relationships, open new opportunities, and help us grow. When you feel grateful, you're more likely to show appreciation to others, strengthening your bonds. When you feel curious, you explore, learn, and innovate. When you feel hopeful, you keep moving forward even when the path isn't clear. These emotions fuel progress, creativity, and resilience. On the other side, destructive feelings like anger, jealousy, or fear can cloud judgment and lead to actions we later regret. Acting out of anger may cause us to say words that damage trust. Acting out of jealousy may push us to compete where collaboration was possible. Acting out of fear may stop us from pursuing dreams that had the potential to transform our lives. The same energy that could have built something good ends up tearing it down. The truth is, feelings are neutral until we assign meaning to them. Anger itself is not inherently destructive. It is how we channel it that determines whether it harms or helps. Anger can lead to destruction if it causes outbursts or rash decisions, but it can also drive positive change when it inspires us to stand up against injustice or fix something broken. Fear, too, can paralyze us if we allow it to dominate our choices, yet it can also sharpen our awareness and push us to prepare more carefully. The same force can either build or break, depending on whether we use it consciously or let it use us. Consider the example of leaders throughout history. The ones remembered for building nations, movements, or organizations didn't succeed because they were free from negative emotions. They succeeded because they chose to channel their feelings in constructive ways. They turned fear into caution, anger into determination, and hope into courage. Meanwhile, others who allowed feelings of greed, envy, or arrogance to dominate ended up losing credibility, breaking relationships, and destroying what they built. The difference wasn't the presence or absence of emotion. It was whether they were mastered or allowed to run wild. In everyday life, the same principle applies. Think of a conversation with a colleague, a friend, or a family member. A single emotional response can change the entire outcome. If you feel impatient, let that feeling dictate your tone. The conversation might turn tense. But if you acknowledge your impatience and choose to respond with calmness, the same conversation can lead to understanding and cooperation. This is the invisible yet powerful role feelings play. They dictate not just what we say or do, but also how others respond to us, which then creates a chain reaction in our relationships and our lives. We cannot escape feelings, and we should not try to. They are a natural part of being human. But what we must learn is how to recognize them as forces of influence that need our guidance. To ignore them is to risk being controlled by them unconsciously. To engage with them wisely is to turn them into tools for growth. Feelings will always shape our decisions and outcomes, but whether they shape them constructively or destructively is a choice we make in every moment. Emotions should act as signals to guide us, not as masters that control us. The role of an emotion is to provide information about what is happening inside us and around us, not to take command of our lives. When you touch something hot, the feeling of pain signals you to pull away. It doesn't force you to keep your hand there. In the same way, emotions like sadness, anger, fear, or even joy are meant to inform us. They're like warning lights on the dashboard of a car, drawing attention to something we need to notice, not instructions that dictate every action. Yet many people confuse the signal for the command, letting feelings dominate instead of listening, reflecting, and then deciding. When emotions take control, the outcome is often regret. Anger tells you that something feels unfair or threatening, but if you allow it to command you, you might lash out and damage relationships that took years to build. Fear tells you that something feels uncertain or risky, but if you let it master you, you may never step forward into opportunities that could have changed your life. Even joy, if unchecked, can push you to make impulsive decisions without considering long-term consequences. The danger is not in the feeling itself. It is in treating the feeling as the ultimate authority rather than as a signal that requires thoughtful interpretation. Think of emotions as messages from your inner world. Anxiety may be signaling that you are stepping into new territory and need to prepare. Sadness may be signaling that you lost something valuable and need to process it. Excitement may be signaling that an opportunity aligns with your passions. These messages are valuable, but they are not orders. A leader who ignores the signals of emotion altogether risks becoming detached and unfeeling, making cold decisions that harm others. But a leader who surrenders entirely to emotions risks being unpredictable and irrational. The balance lies in respecting emotions as guides, not as rulers. Imagine walking through a forest with a compass in your hand. The compass points north, but it doesn't walk for you. It doesn't decide when you should rest, when you should change course, or how fast you should go. It simply provides direction. Emotions work the same way. They point toward what matters, but you still have the responsibility of choosing the action. When we allow emotions to act as signals, we can pause, reflect, and then decide how to respond. This is where true wisdom and maturity lay, the space between feeling and reacting. Consider how often conflicts arise when people confuse signals with commands. A heated argument between friends may begin with one person feeling hurt. That feeling is a signal. I value this relationship, and something here doesn't feel right. But if the hurt is allowed to become the master, it can turn into words spoken in anger, resentment, and eventually distance. If instead the hurt is treated as a signal, it opens the door to honest communication, understanding, and even a stronger bond. The same emotion can either destroy or build, depending on whether it is seen as a signal to explore or as a command to obey. The challenge for most people is that emotions feel immediate and overwhelming. They come with energy that demands release. But part of emotional intelligence is learning to pause in that moment, to recognize that the energy is information, not destiny. A person who can sit with their fear, anger, or sadness without immediately acting on it gains control over their choices. They can channel the energy of those emotions into productive outcomes rather than destructive ones. It's not about suppressing emotions. That only leads to more tension, but about interpreting them correctly and responding intentionally. In professional life, this ability can make or break careers. A manager who lets frustration control them may humiliate an employee in public, destroying trust and morale. But if the same frustration is seen as a signal that something is not working effectively, it can lead to constructive feedback and solutions. In personal life, too, the difference is dramatic. A parent who lets worry dominate might become overprotective, stifling a child's growth. But if that worry is recognized as a signal of love and desire for safety, it can guide balance, support, and encouragement. When you learn to see emotions as signals, you also free yourself from being defined by them. Feeling fear doesn't make you a coward, just as feeling anger doesn't make you a bad person. It simply means something important is happening that deserves your attention. Emotions reveal what matters most to us, our values, our needs, our desires. By treating them as signals, we learn more about ourselves and the world without being trapped in destructive cycles of reaction. Ultimately, life is shaped less by the emotions we feel and more by how we interpret and act on them. The signal is there to help us navigate, but the choice of direction is always ours. Those who understand this live with greater clarity make wiser decisions and build stronger relationships. Those who forget it often find themselves controlled by impulses, regretting words spoken in haste and decisions made without reflection. The distinction between a signal and a master is subtle, but it defines whether emotions serve us or enslave us. Transforming negative emotions into drivers of growth is the key to resilience. Every human being experiences emotions like anger, fear, jealousy, and disappointment. These feelings are often labeled as bad, but the truth is they hold tremendous potential if we choose to use them wisely. Instead of being crushed under the weight of negative emotions, we can learn to redirect their energy toward building strength, character, and progress. The most resilient people are not those who never feel negativity, they are the ones who turn that negativity into fuel. Take anger, for example. On the surface, it feels destructive. It can cause arguments, broken relationships, and even violence when left uncontrolled. But if you look deeper, anger is often a sign that something feels unjust or misaligned. If you allow anger to control you, it damages everything in its path. But if you pause and channel that energy into constructive action, it becomes a force for change. Many social movements, inventions, and breakthroughs were born because someone was angry about the way things were and decided to do something to make them better. Anger became the spark for progress. Fear works in the same way. Left unchecked, fear paralyzes us and keeps us from taking risks. It makes us play small when we are capable of more. But when harnessed, fear is a teacher. It highlights what matters most and where preparation is required. Fear tells us, this is important, pay attention. Athletes, performers, and leaders all experience fear, yet they use it as motivation to train harder, prepare more thoroughly, and focus more intensely. Without fear, we wouldn't develop the resilience to adapt and improve. Fear is not an obstacle to growth. It is a doorway if we are willing to walk through it. Jealousy is another powerful example. It often creates bitterness and resentment when directed outward. But when we reframe jealousy, it reveals something about what we deeply desire. Instead of saying, I hate that person for having what I don't, we can ask, what is this feeling showing me about what I want to achieve? Jealousy can become a roadmap. If someone's success triggers envy, that's a signal that we value what they have accomplished. We can either let jealousy poison our perspective or let it push us to work harder, learn more, and create our own path to success. The difference lies in whether we let the feeling dominate us or redirect it toward growth. Disappointment is another negative emotion that many people fear. Nobody likes the feeling of falling short, being rejected, or failing. Yet disappointment is one of the greatest teachers in life. It forces us to reflect on what went wrong, to reassess our strategies, and to refine our approach. Without disappointment, there would be no learning curve. Every successful person has faced setbacks that could have broken them. The ones who grew were those who chose to turn disappointment into determination. They didn't see failure as the end. They saw it as information guiding them to improve. Resilience is not about avoiding negative emotions. It is about alchemizing them into something useful. Every difficult feeling carries raw energy, and energy can be transformed. Imagine it like electricity uncontrolled. It can burn and destroy, but when harnessed, it can power homes, cities, and industries. Negative emotions are no different. They are raw forces waiting for direction. Without conscious effort, they destroy. With conscious effort, they build. Think about how this applies in daily life. When criticized, the immediate emotional reaction might be defensiveness or anger. If you let that reaction control you, the relationship suffers and you learn nothing. But if you step back and ask, what part of this criticism can I use to improve? Suddenly, the negative emotion becomes a catalyst for growth. Similarly, when life throws challenges your way, it is natural to feel discouraged or fearful. But if you choose to use those emotions as reminders of your strength and opportunities to learn, you come out of adversity stronger than before. Resilient people do not escape negativity. They master it. They see anger as motivation, fear as preparation, jealousy as inspiration, and disappointment as instruction. They understand that emotions in themselves are neither good nor bad. It is the way we respond that determines the outcome. Growth often hides inside the very emotions we try hardest to avoid. By leaning into them, studying them, and redirecting them, we transform what could have broken us into what makes us unbreakable. The truth is, negative emotions are inevitable. No one escapes them, no matter how positive or disciplined they are. What separates those who thrive from those who remain stuck is the choice they make in the face of negativity. Do they surrender to it, or do they use it as fuel? The key to resilience lies in that choice. Transforming negative emotions into drivers of growth is not just a strategy. It is a way of life that turns obstacles into opportunities and challenges into stepping stones for becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. Self-awareness allows us to respond to feelings with intention rather than reaction. Every person experiences emotions in real time, often so suddenly that they feel overwhelming. A harsh word from someone can spark anger, A setback can stir frustration, and an unexpected opportunity can ignite excitement. The natural tendency is to react instantly, driven by whatever feeling takes hold in the moment. Yet this automatic reaction is what often leads to regret. Words spoken in haste can damage relationships, choices made impulsively can derail progress, and emotions left unchecked can cloud judgment. Self-awareness acts as the buffer between stimulus and response. It gives us the space to pause, reflect, and then choose how to respond with clarity instead of compulsion. To be self-aware is to understand not only what you feel, but also why you feel it and how it might influence your actions. It means noticing the tightening in your chest when fear arises, acknowledging the heat of anger when you feel disrespected, or recognizing the rush of excitement when faced with new opportunities. These observations may seem small, but they are powerful. The simple act of noticing creates distance between the emotion and the reaction. Instead of saying, "I am angry," a self-aware person says, "I am experiencing anger." That shift in language is profound. It turns the emotion into something you have, not something that has you. When people lack self-awareness, they often confuse feelings with facts. They believe that because they feel hopeless, the situation is hopeless. Because they feel disrespected, the other person must have intended harm. Because they feel anxious, they assume danger is imminent. Without awareness, emotions dictate perception, and perception dictates action. But with awareness, emotions can be observed without automatically being believed. You can say, "I feel hopeless right now," but that doesn't mean the situation cannot change. Or, "I feel anxious," but that doesn't mean I am in real danger. This gap between feeling and interpretation is where intention is born. Responding with intention requires understanding your values and long-term goals. A moment of anger might tempt you to lash out, but self-awareness reminds you that preserving trust in a relationship is more important than winning an argument. A wave of fear might urge you to retreat, but awareness tells you that growth often lies on the other side of discomfort. Excitement might encourage you to leap without thinking, but awareness encourages patience and discernment. By being aware of both the feeling and the bigger picture, you can choose a response that aligns with who you want to be, not just how you feel in the moment. In practice, self-awareness often shows up as a pause. It is the ability to hold back from sending that angry message right away, to take a breath before making a decision out of fear, or to reflect for a moment before agreeing to something in excitement. That pause doesn't erase the emotion, but it prevents the emotion from being the only voice in the conversation. It allows reason, values, and perspective to also play their part. People who cultivate this pause find themselves making better decisions, building stronger relationships, and maintaining greater consistency in their behavior. Self-awareness also deepens empathy. When you recognize your own emotional patterns, you become more attuned to the feelings of others. For example, if you know how fear can make you defensive, you are more patient with someone else who reacts the same way. If you understand how sadness can make you withdraw, you are gentler with others who need space. This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but it does mean responding with compassion rather than judgment. Awareness of self translates into awareness of others, and this creates healthier connections. Consider how this plays out in leadership. A leader without self-awareness might react to stress with anger, causing the entire team to feel unsafe or demoralized. A self-aware leader, on the other hand, notices their stress rising and chooses to communicate calmly, focusing on solutions rather than blame. The result is trust, loyalty, and collective progress. The same applies to parenting, friendships, and even self-leadership. How we handle our emotions sets the tone for how others experience us and how we experience the world. The truth is, emotions are inevitable and powerful, but they do not have to dictate our actions. Self-awareness turns emotions into data, useful information about our inner state, rather than commands. It empowers us to choose responses aligned with our values and aspirations. The more aware we are of our feelings, the less control they have over us, and the more intentional our lives become. By practicing awareness, we transform our emotions from forces that push us around into signals that guide us wisely. The quality of your life depends on whether you let feelings break you or use them to make you stronger. Every person faces moments when emotions feel overwhelming, when anger clouds judgment, when fear blocks opportunity, when sadness makes everything seem heavy, or when disappointment feels unbearable. These feelings are unavoidable, but they are not destiny. What determines the outcome of your life is not the presence of emotions, but the choices you make in response to them. Do you let the weight of your feelings pull you down, or do you find a way to turn that weight into strength? That decision, made again and again, defines the path of your life. Feelings are not just private experiences, they shape the way we act in the world. A person who allows anger to control them might damage relationships, ruin opportunities, or live with constant regret. But a person who uses anger as fuel to address problems constructively can build solutions, fight injustice, and inspire others. Two people can feel the same emotion, yet their lives turn out completely differently based on how they handle it. This is why some people break under the pressure of strong emotions while others rise above them and grow stronger because of them. The same storm that destroys one house can strengthen another if it was built with resilience. Fear is one of the clearest examples. Many people allow fear to stop them from pursuing their dreams. They interpret the feeling as a command to retreat, to stay small, to avoid risk. Over time, this habit of surrendering to fear limits their potential and narrows their lives. Yet others feel the same fear, but treat it as a signal to prepare more, to sharpen their skills, to move carefully but steadily toward their goals. For them, fear becomes a teacher rather than a jailer. They don't ignore it, but they don't obey it blindly either. They learn from it, and that learning makes them stronger, more capable, and more courageous over time. Sadness, too, can either break or make us. When someone experiences loss, failure, or rejection, sadness is natural. For some, sadness becomes a reason to give up, to stop trying, to believe that life has nothing more to offer. For others, sadness becomes a mirror. It reflects what truly matters and what needs healing. Instead of breaking them, it deepens their empathy, sharpens their priorities, and helps them grow into more compassionate and resilient people. Sadness can weaken a person into hopelessness, but it can also strengthen them into wisdom, depending on how they choose to carry it. Even disappointment, a feeling most people dread, plays a defining role. Disappointment can break someone by convincing them that effort is useless, that failure is permanent, or that they are not capable enough. Yet the same disappointment can make another person more determined, more creative, and more disciplined. The difference lies in how the feeling is interpreted. If disappointment is treated as evidence of inadequacy, it becomes destructive. But if it is seen as feedback, as guidance on how to improve, it becomes constructive. Life is full of disappointments, but it is also full of opportunities to turn those disappointments into stepping stones for progress. The way you handle feelings not only affects your personal growth, but also the people around you. When you choose to let emotions break you, the effects ripple outward, your relationships weaken, your opportunities shrink, and your environment reflects your inner turmoil. But when you choose to let feelings make you stronger, others benefit too. Your resilience inspires them, your calmness brings stability, and your growth creates opportunities for collaboration. In this way, your handling of emotions contributes not just to your own quality of life, but to the quality of the lives around you. What makes this idea powerful is that it does not depend on circumstances. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can always decide how to interpret and use your emotions. Two people can go through the same hardship. One becomes bitter and broken, while the other becomes wiser and stronger. The event was the same, but the meaning they gave to their feelings was different. That choice is always available. Every difficult emotion can either be a weight that drags you down or resistance that builds your strength. The truth is, feelings are not enemies to fight or chains to escape. They are raw materials, and what you build with them is entirely up to you. If you let them break you, they will. If you decide to use them as tools, they will shape you into someone stronger than you were before. The quality of your life is, in large part, the accumulation of these choices over time, moment by moment, emotion by emotion. Each time you decide to rise instead of collapse, to learn instead of surrender, you are building a life of strength, resilience, and meaning. Life will never be free of emotions, and it was never meant to be. Feelings are part of being human. They are signal teachers and forces of energy. But what truly defines us is not what we feel, it is what we choose to do with what we feel. Every moment presents a choice: to let anger burn bridges, or to let it fuel change, to let fear close doors, or to let it sharpen courage, to let sadness drown us, or to let it deepen our empathy, to let disappointment end the journey, or to let it refine the path. The difference between those who break under the weight of their emotions and those who rise because of them is awareness and choice. You cannot control when emotions arrive, but you can control how you respond, and that response shapes the quality of your life. Feelings will either make you or break you, but the power to decide which one it will be has always been yours. Choose wisely, because in every choice, you are building the story of who you are becoming.